Hey everybody, it's Craig again. It's another edition of Unbreakable podcast. It is still Thursday, November the 7th. Well, it's our first edition ever of our classic movie of the week. We were doing classic TV shows for a long time, and we hit a lot of them. But now it's time to move on to movies. So every week we're going to do a classic movie, talk about it, talk about the trivia, the background, some things you may know, may not know. And the purpose is we're going to have fun, and maybe this will encourage you to find this movie, stream it, find it. I was going to say rent it, but you can't do it. Remember the old days of Blockbuster? Those those are gone. But anyway, maybe it'll encourage you to check out these movies again because hopefully they're all going to be great movies we talk about. Now, I posted it my regular episode today. We talked about the Sixers, they stink, the Eagles, go Eagles. But I forgot to do one thing, which I should never forget to do. Patron saint of this fine podcast, Bud. There he is. Now, this is one of my favorite shots. It's Babushka Bud. Okay, he's got the babushka on. There you go. It's actually a scarf, but we call it a babushka. There it is. It's over his ears. Sort of looks like someone who came from the other side back in the 20s or something. And I work for food. I work for food. I clean your house. There it is. Bud. We love him. We miss him. The patron saint of this fine broadcast. Okay, now, what is the movie going to be? This week's movie. No words to the theme song, but I'm going to try to hum it, and you'll know it right. There you go. Ready? A classic theme song, if there is. Wait. Wah, wah, wah. Wah, wah, wah. Wah, wah, wah. Wah, wah. That's right. The good, the bad, and the ugly, or as we used to say, the ugly. Look, there it is. Oh, upside down. There it is. See, I don't edit all this show because, first of all, it takes too much time. And second of all, people love when you make mistakes because they're like bloopers. And who cares? So there you go. Look, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, there you go. 1966 classic movie. They got Clint Eastwood over here, and he is smoking his little cigar there. He got Lee Van Cleef in the middle, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Eli Wallach. I know it's shiny. The good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, now we're going to talk about this movie. What a great Western, huh? I need my glasses for this. This was actually the third movie of the trilogy. The directing. All these movies they were called spaghetti westerns. Why were they called that? Because they were made in Italy and Spain. They were directed by Italians, written by Italian, theme song. Everything was done with an Italian crew. Cameras, everything, except for the actors, some of the actors. A lot of the actors were Italian actors, but the main actors, of course, Clint Eastwood, Eli Wallach, Lee Van Cleef, not a tip. But spaghetti western. And in 1966, this movie came out. Can you believe that? So we're talking what, 50, 60, almost 60 years ago now? 50? I don't know. I was never good at that. So, spaghetti western. Sergio Leone, the director. What a bastard director. And we're going to talk more about him too as this goes on. Sergio Leone. And it's only the first, that was only this was the third movie in the trilogy. The two others, do you remember what they were? Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More. So all three films, along with The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, were known as the Dollars Trilogy. Mid-60s, the height of the spaghetti westerns. That classic theme song, written by a guy named Ennio Morricone. Hey. And of course, Eastwood played a man with no name. We never knew his name, but he was nicknamed Blondie in the movie. And Lee Van Cleef, Angel Eyes. You got those gunfighter eyes. Remember those gunfighter eyes? Was really gritty, sort of steely eyes. Eli Wallach was Tuca. Tuca. He was sort of he was ruthless and he was a bandit, but he was sort of a comical relief guy. Actually, it's very interesting. When I was reading about this movie, when they wrote the script, they actually brought in a pair of comedy writers, Italian comedy writers, to help the other screenwriters with the script, because Leone wanted to put a sense of humor into the script too. But the script, the part that the comedy writers wrote, was so bad. They only used like maybe one scene that they helped writing. Right. They really didn't do much. So, very this movie, very gritty, grisly, violent, realistic. That was Leone. If you notice the cinematography, a lot of grays, blacks, dark tones, although this film is much lighter picture-wise than the previous two. But that was Leone. Leone wanted his films to be very realistic. And he thought of the Old West, especially around the Civil War time, as being not so nice. A lot of the Westerns we made here in America prior to the 60s were sort of glamorized Westerns. What life would like to be back in the Old West. Wow, I wasn't so bad, I'd like to go back to the Old West. Now, Leone saw things very realistically. He said, it wasn't so great back then around the Civil War. People were dying. So that's the kind of film he always did. The mountains around there and the towns in Mexico, like the shacks and the buildings falling apart and just very very gritty, So most of the movie was filmed in Spain. Even though they called it a spaghetti western, Italian crew, most of it was actually filmed in Spain. The American version, very long movie, 3 hours. Oh, very long movie. The American version ran 161 minutes. The Italian version ran 177 minutes, 16 more minutes. It was made, The Good, Bad, and the Ugly was made for $1.2 billion, which may not sound like a lot now, but back in the mid-60s, that was a lot of money. But it brought back 38.9 million. So needless to say, it was a box office success. And we talked about the previous two movies. A Fistful of Dollars was filmed in 1964. For a Few Dollars More was filmed in 1965. And The Good, Bad, and the Ugly was filmed in 1966. But interestingly enough, as we'll talk about, all three films were released in the same year, 1966. So Leone had the two previous movies in the can, so to speak. He wanted them to come out right after each other, bang, 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 the three entries into the trilogy, so to speak. Eastwood was the star, and he got a percentage of the cut. He was in the other two movies for a few dollars more, fistful of dollars. Eastwood was satisfied with taking the flat rate. He was paid flat rate, that was it. But Eastwood started to get a little more famous. His star started to grow, so he demanded more. So Eastwood not only got $250,000 to play the role of Blondie, which again doesn't sound like a lot of money nowadays, but back in the 60s it was. He got a new Ferrari, and he also got 10% cut of the box office. So think about it. The movie made $38 million, close to $39 million. He got over $3 million right there. And again, back in the 60s, that was big money. So Eastwood knew what he was doing. The original title, the working title of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, was called The Two Magnificent Tramps. Now, this was before they added a third person into the mix. See, the plot was, in case y'all know you haven't seen the movie, it's about these three rogues. Again, the good Clint Eastwood, although he wasn't totally good. The whole movie, Leone's thing was the whole movie was anti-heroes. Well, there was some good, that was Blondie, but he had his bad side too. And then you had the bad who was leaving, who was really, really bad. He's the kind of guy who would shoot you into that, And Tuco was the ugly. He had his good side, he had his bad side. But that's what Leone wanted to show. There was good and bad in everybody, and greed, violence, not only violence, but greed was a big part of his movies. Gold. And these three guys are after this cache of gold that's buried somewhere in the Mexican desert. Where is it? Well, one guy had a clue to it. When he was dead, he spoke the words of where to find the gold right before he died. And Eastwood was the only one to know the answer. So between Tuco and Angel Eyes, they didn't want to shoot Blondie because he's the only one who knew where the gold was. So they tried to keep him alive and butter him up to know where the gold is until the final scene, which we're going to talk about, which is one of the great climactic scenes of all time in the movies. That was the working title. It was also thought of calling the movie The River of Dollars or The Man with No Name, which Eastwood's character came to be known as Eddie, the Man with No Name, because you never knew what his name was. Nobody asked him what his name was, and he never introduced himself. That's the way it was through most of the movies. If you saw the movie, you'll remember there's a famous bridge explosion during the Civil War battles. And again, these three roads, they're not anymore, but the movie takes place during the Civil War. And they sort of skirt around battles on their way to the cemetery to find where this gold was buried. And they run into Union and Southern soldiers, Confederate soldiers. And so it's played around the Civil War, and it shows the atrocities of war. And really, like Leone said, stupid. How war is stupid. When you think about it, he's right. What the hell? What are you getting at? You're just killing each other. So that's what Leone wanted to bring to the screen. Anyway, during the scene where this massive bridge is blown up, and actually it was a real bridge. It was a real bridge that they blew up. It wasn't fake. Back in the 60s, it wasn't like CGI or some computer generated thing. It was a real bridge that they blew up. But guess what? There was a mistake because they had cameras around to film this explosion of the bridge. They hoped though to do it one time, of course. what happened, they miscalculated. And not only did the bridge blow up, but a few of their cameras did too. I kid you not. So they not only had to get new cameras in, but they had to actually rebuild the bridge. And it was done by thousands of Spanish soldiers that Leone hired to rebuild the bridge. Not only that, but they, in the climatic scene, where the gold, I'm not giving anything away, in case you haven't seen it, the gold is found in this cemetery, Mexican cemetery. He paid a bunch of Spanish soldiers to construct a cemetery. Thousands, literally thousands of graves, thousands of wooden corpses. And the thing was, it was like, where's Waldo? You know, that was the thing at the end. Where's the gold? We know through Blondie that the gold is buried in one of those thousands of graves, but where is that? And that's the puzzle until we get to you. Part of Leone's shtick when he was making the movie was really close close-ups. You got the wide panoramic views, which made things look even darker and more foreboding. But then you had the really close-ups. And do you remember the climactic scenes there when Leone filmed that? Right on the face, and the hand on the holster, ready to get the gun, you know, and the twitching in the eyes, looking at that. He was a master of that. He was a master of that. Now, when when the three face off at the end, the standoff, they're in a circle. Who's going to pull the trigger? Who's going to draw first? And it seemed like forever with this 20-minute standoff. And you got the movie, you got the music going, the tension is built, and every twitch. Well, Leone had a trick. He spun the camera around like a whirlwind, so it looked like it was a dream sequence. And you went from Eastwood to Van Cleef to Wallach and back and forth, and it went around and around in a circle. And it was just something how it built up the anticipation of who's going to draw first. Well, apparently, when the script was done, Eastwood wasn't very happy with the script. He thought even before they started shooting. Yeah, like I said, Eastwood had made a few movies, but I don't know if you could say he was starting to get a big head or not, but he thought he was the star, which he was. So he said he kind of thought that the character of Tuco, Eli Wallach, was taken away from him a bit, because he said to Leone, look, when we made A Fistful of Dollars together, I was like the primary person in the story. And then we made for a few dollars more. Well, okay, you added me, Van Cleef. Okay, I'll share the screen with Van Cleef, but I'm still the baby. Now, in The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, you want me to share the screen with a third person, Eli Wallach? Really? And so he sort of walked at them until they made him happy, the baby. They made him happy by basically giving him more money. That's what made him happy. In between, here's some little bit of trivia for you. In between scenes, Eastwood was big golf. He would practice his golf swings in the desert. Can you imagine that? Eastwood dressed in the poncho in all the Western garb there, practicing his golf swing. Actually, all the actors were very critical of Leone because, how should I say, he kind of took liberties with the actors. He wasn't very concerned for their safety. And some of the actors during the shooting of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly actually died. And apparently it was this way through a lot of the spaghetti westerns. the crew, they weren't very how should I say, they should have been more vigilant with their actors' lives. In fact, one episode is Eli Wallach almost died from poisoning. He drank some acid. He had a bottle of soda, and one of the crew put down a bottle of acid. I kid you not, this is true. Near his soda, he by mistake picked it up, drank it. He's Jesus, huh? And another thing, if you remember the movie, he jumps off a train, and his ankles are chained together because he was a prisoner. Jumps off the train. Well, the way that he cuts himself loose from the shackles that his feet are, he puts the links on the railroad track. He waits for the next train to come by, and when it whizzes by, it severs the link, and he's free. Well, that's all well and good, but somebody forgot to tell Wallach that every train car, there's about a foot of metal, how should I say it, like a platform sticking out. And if luckily, Wallach was stooped over in this scene. Feet are shackled and he stooped over. If Eli Wallach would have stood up for any reason or straightened his back, he would have been decapitated. That's because the train was going by. These iron metal platforms were sticking out, and it would just took his head. I think he was a little lucky there. But the thing is, Leone never told him about that. He never told him. He should have told him, well, look, don't stand up. Don't stand up forever, whatever you do. Don't stand up. Leone was very, very into the visual in these movies. If you watch a lot of these Italian spaghetti westerns, the dialogue is very good because most of the dialogue is dubbed in later. See, in the Italian westerns, everybody speaks Italian except Van Cleef. Well, the main actors, Van Cleef, Wallach, and Eastwood spoke English, but their dialogue was dubbed in later, post-production. And you can see it's not synced up really well. Like Eastwood would like say, I'm going to shoot you now. And instead, it's like, and you hear the thing like a second later. I'm going to shoot you now. Yeah. And actually, you know what? Leone didn't care. He was very meticulous on the set, they said. That's one reason why the actors really didn't like him. They really didn't like him because he was such a perfectionist. He would shoot a scene like 37 times. And you're in the desert, it's hot, give me a break. He was such a perfectionist and did everything right, which is good in a way for his movie audience, but in another way, he was very grueling to the actors. Well, anyway, Leone didn't really care about the audio part. He really cared about, he didn't want a lot of dialogue, like during the climactic scene in the cemetery. It was more music. Music. Because Leone thought that would bring up the tension, that would hold the interest, not the dialogue. And of course, the less dialogue you have, the less dubbing you have to do later on after the movie is done, right? So, what happened was then, Eastwood disliked Leone after working with him on 3 Pictures so much, he used to call him Yosemite, as in relation to the old Bugs Bunny character. Another bit of trivia. That poncho that Eastwood wore, but this whole film was very original. Not only was it more realistic than usual westerns, but in usual westerns, you got guys wearing certain clothes, vests, and things, hats, 10-gallon hats, things that you normally would see in westerns. Leone had these guys dressed up differently. Ponchos, different kind of headwear hats, just different, different stuff. So that poncho that Clint Eastwood wore throughout the movie of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, he gave to a friend of his who had a restaurant in Carmel, California. Now, whether it's still there or not, I don't know. But gave it to a friend. Can you imagine how much that poncho would be worth? Hey, cranky. Gave it to a friend who hung it up on a wall in his restaurant, Carmel, California. That song, wah, 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 very popular. 1967, the album The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the soundtrack made it up to #4 in the Billboard charts. And the song itself was re-recorded by a guy named Hugo Montenegro in 1968, and his version went to #2 on the Billboard charts. So, as I said, even though they filmed the trilogy back years, back, they were all released in 67, and Fistful of Dollars came out on January 18th, followed by For a Few Dollars More, which came out on May 10th, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in America came out on December 29th. How about that? Rotten Tomatoes has still certified the movie as 97%. How about that? And even though the movie got mixed reviews when it first came out, because you know what? People looked down on spaghetti westerns back in the day. Even the famous movie critic, Roger Ebert, remember Siskel and Ebert? I just don't remember the movie shows, the reviews. I miss those guys. He gave Good, Bad, and Ugly 3 stars when it first came out. He later upgraded that to 4 stars when he did a review of great movies, and he included it in his great movies. And he said the reason he didn't give it a better review when it came out in the 60s was because a lot of critics looked down on spaghetti westerns. They thought they were inferior to our westerns. They thought they were cheaply made. Just the dialogue, of course, like we said, wasn't the same. The synchronization and lip syncing wasn't the same. But as time went on, critics and movie lovers have gotten to see that these were great, 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 great movies that they made. The spaghetti westerns were great. Some of the finest westerns ever made. And The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly that became a classic. Classic, classic, classic. It is really, you talk about a movie like Stagecoach, which was made back in 39, the prototype of a Western. And it was a great movie, don't get me wrong. John Wayne, John Ford. But when you talk about Westerns, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the more contemporary movie. Now, it was the contemporary 1966, what the hell, right? But back in the day, it was, and it still lives up to being the movie that is, it's Quentin Tarantino. Get this, Quentin Tarantino, for God's sakes, who made Pulp Fiction and all those other great movies, loves The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Big fan of Sergio Leone. Big fan of the spaghetti westerns. So, you got more modern day people, producers, directors, writers, actors, who now see the greatness in those spaghetti westerns. Finally, Time Magazine, when they did their list of 100 greatest movies of all time, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was included in the 100 greatest movies of all time. Now, did you know, final point, there was going to be a sequel. And it was going to be called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly 2. It was going to star Eli Wallach as Tuco. And the plot was Eli Wallach was still searching for the gold. I'm not going to tell you how the ending is in case you haven't seen it, because if you haven't, I highly recommend and encourage you to go and find The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But safe to say, the plot of the second movie would have been Tuco still looking for the gold, but this time chasing after Blondie's grandson, who apparently has the gold. Tuco wanted his share. So here's what happened. They had a script. They had Leone's blessings. Leone was going to direct, produce, whatever. Eastwood didn't want to act in it, but Eastwood said he would narrate. He would talk over the credits. He would talk over as the film went. He would be glad to do that. Everything was set to have a sequel to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. All of a sudden, Leone pulled the plug. Nobody even knew what. All he said was, he didn't feel like making westerns anymore. He would not give permission, since Leone owned a lot of this, the rights to a lot of this stuff, Not only was he the director, but he was the producer. He owned a lot of the script and a lot of the copyrighted stuff. He wouldn't give him permission to use it. So they never made a sequel. That was the end of that. Okay, my final thoughts on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Well, I'll tell you what. There it is again. I have it in my personal collection, as you can see. That's what I think about it. I think it's a hell of a movie. It's a long movie. You got 3 hours. Okay. It goes faster. It really does. And the pace is extraordinary. There's really no downtime in the movie. There's always something happening, something exciting going on. This guy trying to shoot this guy, or this guy double crossing this guy. There's a lot of twists and turns in the movie to keep you interested. Of course, until the final climactic scene where you've got the standoff. Not these 2 guys, high noon on the streets of Dodge City, the gunfight. You got 3 guys in a circle. Who's going to draw first? Who dies and who lives? There you go. It all builds up to that. So great score, great picture, great. I can't say enough about this movie. It is violent, so be ready. But if you enjoy a Western and you enjoy a realistic Western and you got time to watch it, find it, my friend. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Okay, that's our first movie classic movie. Next week we'll do another one. What will we do? Will we do a comedy? Will we do a science fiction? Will we do another Western? Will we do a drama? Who knows? You'll have to tune in to find that. I'll post this now, and I'll keep it up all week on Twitter and Facebook. You check it out. If you like it, comment, and let me know how you like it. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Peace and love. Talk to you soon.